coming here was kind of a nice opportunity to meet Sarah and Harriet and their love for Mr. Haynes and this type collection, and to kind of be exposed to that and to feel that energy and, you know, enthusiasm for it is very contagious.
So there I was on 57th Street.
This summer, the Ashantilly Press's Artist in Residence program, now in its 13th year, was fortunate enough to host Brooklyn-based artist Martin Mazorra. Ashantilly hosted an opening meet and greet, which was very well attended. We sat down to talk with Martin midway through his 3-week stay.
I basically make prints for my own studio work. I teach at Parsons School of Design, the Pratt Institute. I do workshops at the Penland School of Craft, all about printmaking. So when I'm not teaching printmaking, I'm making my own prints, or I do contract printing for other people. So basically I'm like eat, sleep, dream print all the time. I went to West Virginia University. I took electives in print because that was the community area where you would go and there would be a lot of people hanging out. Had a lot of strong professors that encouraged us to engage with that. And that led me to graduate school. And while at graduate school, I worked as a technician. Part of my fellowship was to work in the print shop. And that also kind of led me to, when I came to New York, working for a printer. And so like I've always had this as a vocational position, and making print kind of led me to a greater community of people. I started Cannonball Press, which was my own publishing company, with my good friend Mike Houston in 1999. And we published prints for 20 years under that masthead, and produced a 18 by 24 inch black and white print that we sold for $20. It was ambitious. It wasn't the greatest marketing, but it was like, you know, a really fun project. And through that, we worked with, you know, several hundred artists over those years to produce editions for them in limited sizes, and did shows with that. And more recently, I've established my own space, and I've had people come out and collaborate with me there in a more one-on-one kind of thing. And so I've always used it, or had it, as part of like a community building or a way to socialize with people and make work. So coming here was kind of a nice opportunity to meet Sarah and Harriet and their love for Mr. Haynes and this type collection, and to kind of be exposed to that and to feel that energy and, you know, enthusiasm for it is very contagious. And I feel like having that context and kind of understanding of the provenance of this place really slowed me down in kind of a way to reflect on things that I normally would be jamming from project to project to get things done, which is kind of what I wanted with this residency, was to work at a different kind of pace and to be a little bit more reflective, moving from like all of this print history that I had to like being able to come here and be exposed to or learn about, you know, Mr. Haynes's legacy is pretty amazing.
And then the last sentiment is about doing something, and it's a sentiment that is like anchor, as if you plan to stay forever, even if you intend to leave in an hour. And it's very much like do it right if you're going to do it at all. And I feel like that's kind of a bit of my motto.
I had been making work that was slightly codified and hinted at different things, but never really, you know, was not quite as illustrative. And I became interested in the Victorian language of flowers where a particular flower could be presented to somebody and it would have a secret message. So it could be used to tell something that was unspeakable or unspoken. And so people would know what a particular association with the flower meant. And so I like that, because everybody has their own associations with, say, a red rose or a carnation or, a daffodil or something, that kind of got me interested in it, because I could recycle imagery, and then I could pair it with the movable type and a brief sentiment that would go along with it. So I've been making that work for about 12 years now.
And then you could present either a single flower or a bouquet of flowers to somebody, and that would be like a complex idea that you would want to do, And if you passed it to somebody with the, what is it called? The flower part up, it meant something, and if you turned it upside down and passed it, it meant something else, right? So I've played with this for a really long time, and I really love it, because I found out that a lot of this stuff was just made up. I was like, perfect. I can tell the story however I want, and I can make up my own stuff that would go along with it.
I traditionally work in an 18 by 24 inch format, which is more of a group kind of presentation. It's not as intimate as, say, some of the things that I've been working on here at the press. It's much more of a louder kind of print. I often joke about it, especially with the florography or the floral prints, that it's not necessarily a flower, that it's a flower, like it's a large, bombastic kind of presentation of something that may be a little bit more intimate or smaller. And so this has been a challenge for me, because of the size of the printing press, and the type that's in the collection here is much more book type. It's much more of that kind of small, one person kind of intimate experience. And so that's been a nice moment of this residency, is to kind of become acquainted with that and that space of working.
I've been waiting for something to click. And then this spring, as I was working on other things, I came across somewhere, either in social media, this thing about spring ephemerals. And these are plants that only appear for a very, very short time early on. And many of them have specific pollinators that are like flies. And we were talking about water lilies that smelled like carrion or something. They sting to attract different kinds of pollinators. And sometimes it's like a peony where it needs an ant to go in and eat it. There's all of these weird kind of things, but these plants only appear for a very short amount of time. And I was like, that's a really good thing for me to do if I hit and run Darien. If I go into Darien and I'm there for a very short amount of time, I have to get it done and leave. I can't labor over it. And so I made this series of prints, and they're done with the carving process, whereby which I will start and I'll carve and I'll print, and I'll carve a little bit more and I print a slightly darker color. And at the end, the board just kind of disappears. So they can't be repeated. Like when we were talking about parts of these things that came from the collection, these are things that I could print, you could print, and we could use them interchangeably, but they're going to be consistent. Whereas this, once it's done, it's done. And so I like that it kind of paired well with what I wanted to do, how long I was going to be here, and this kind of a poetic sentiment that I really like.
And so this is a smaller format for you, like you were saying.
This is probably, a traditional quarter galley size. It's like a smaller size. The printing press and the size that I usually work on is probably, like I said, 18 by 24 inches. And this is maybe half that size, the sheet, 9 by 24. So I have to print it, and flip the paper around and print from the other side. So this would accommodate, say, something, 15 by 20, which is a nice size thing. But of course, I had to make it more difficult for some reason, for whatever reason, to be able to make my pamphlet. So each one of these forms that I'm working with has a carving element, an illustration, and type from the collection that's here. And they're separated out from this red and black forms, each one kind of representative of part of the pages of this small pamphlet. So I was told that it was called skeletonizing the form. So I take the elements apart. So there's 8 forms that'll make up this small black and red and yellow book. And they're a collection of toasts that I have found. So it's a little more lighthearted and kind of silly. But kind of a nice little bit of leave behind for each of these. So all of this is made from the type collection, and all of these are individual letter forms that have to be composed and carefully measured so that it'll line up. We're hoping that that's what's going to happen with this. But yeah, so I'm maybe out of the 8 forms that exist here, I have 2 more to print. So yeah, we stand to be in pretty good shape to get all this together.
I learned about the collection after being here, and I was excited about the depth of catalog that's there in the library of those typefaces. And I have ones that I'm very comfortable using. And I kind of like to try and break out of that to challenge myself. So setting type in some things that I don't own is also like one of those things, and how you put those together. So I chose 2 different typefaces from the collection after spending hours like poring over it and put them together. So they're 2 different kinds of things. It's almost like a dating app. You try and find 2 that like might get along together, and you put them in there to have this conversation. And so I chose to print them in black and red and kind of put them together in that way.
The more that I learned about the type collection, Mr. Haynes had an affinity for a particular typeface, and then there's also type that is new or has been acquired and married into this type collection. But projects that he worked on were, here, and ornaments that were used to make his books are in this collection. And so you come upon these things, and, it really has a particular kind of weight to it, and things start to make sense. And because you're seeing another artist's tools and you're using those same tools, you can kind of follow in the logic of why they exist here. And that is really interesting and super insightful when you see the way that he's composed with them or used them together. This provides kind of almost like a lesson, in typography and graphic design that I feel like having a sensitivity towards those things, or the time to kind of reflect on it, has been really, really helpful. You get to a little insight into somebody's mind and how they would organize, and think about things. And it's, there's a logic behind it, And once you kind of start to see that, you kind of, other things start making sense. Like you see his drawings, or you might see his paintings, or the house, and you're like, it's really revealing of a person's personality and character. I have walked away from this with kind of a deeper appreciation for, and like maybe an understanding of a small part of who this person is, maybe from stories or the history, but also from that insight into how they actually made things. I was introduced to his first book that he printed, Anchored Yesterdays. And it just so happened that the first project that I printed had a nautical theme as well. And there was this sentiment that was printed inside of it. And that was not planned, and it just kind of serendipity of coming into us, or coincidence. But this would be the small book that I printed here, using some of the illustrations and ornament, but of course the center's type collection, to produce like a small 5-panel book project. That this would be the project that I would leave with the center's part of the residency, is that I would produce a work, and then that becomes part of an ongoing project, not only to document my stay here, but also to help fund the residency moving forward.
Like, so silly, serious, sentimental, and then, a little more reflective in terms of like making the work with these prints. And so, yeah, I'm happy to answer questions or make up something.